How did a Croatian boy survive war and win the Ballon d'Or? Before Luka Modric wore the number 10, he wore fear like a second skin. In the hills near Zadar, war wasn't something on the news, it was the sound outside his window. Luka Modric didn't grow up in a training ground or an academy. He grew up in a country falling apart, where the silence between gunshots was the only space left to dream. When he was 6 years old, his grandfather was killed. His family fled their home and moved into a small hotel that had been turned into a refugee shelter. There was no pitch, no safety, no plan for tomorrow. Yet even in that parking lot surrounded by broken concrete and sirens, Luka found a ball and a little peace. He played alone at first, then with others. He wasn't the strongest or the fastest, but he was the calmest. And maybe that was what made him different. This is not just a football story. It's the journey of a boy who carried the weight of war into every match he ever played. From his early days at NK Zadar to his rise at Dinamo Zagreb. From being doubted in England to becoming the rhythm of Real Madrid. From the first steps at Tottenham to the unforgettable nights in the Champions League. From leading Croatia to a World Cup final to lifting the Ballon d'Or in an era ruled by two giants. You will hear the voices of those who stood beside him. You will understand why coaches trusted him before fans did. And you will see how quiet consistency can shape a football revolution. This is how Luka Modric turned hardship into vision, memory into movement, and silence into something worth watching. This is the journey from start to now.
Now he'll unleash one! Sensational goal from Luka Modric!
Luka Modric was born in 1985 in the coastal city of Zadar and spent his early years in the nearby mountain village of Modrici in what was then Yugoslavia. His earliest memories belong to a peaceful countryside, but the calm didn't last long. When Luka was 6, the Croatian War of Independence broke out and quickly reached their doorstep. His grandfather, also named Luka, was captured and executed. Their home was burned to the ground, and his family was forced to flee. They found temporary safety in Zadar, but even there, life was shaped by the sound of sirens and the rhythm of explosions. The Modric family moved into a rundown hotel that had been converted into a shelter for refugees. The conditions were harsh, with no privacy and little comfort, and every day brought new uncertainty. In the middle of this, Luka discovered something that gave him a reason to move, to focus, and to feel alive. He found a football and began playing in the parking lot, using the cracked concrete as his first training ground. What he learned in those years never left him. There were no coaches, no perfect pitches, and no guarantees, only repetition, instinct, and survival. Luka didn't run to impress, he moved to escape. He didn't panic under pressure because pressure had already lived in his home. Those who watched him noticed something unusual. Even as a boy, he played with a kind of quiet precision that made him hard to notice at first, but impossible to ignore once you did. Later in his career, coaches and teammates would say he could slow down the game in his mind, as if time bent for him. That awareness wasn't something he learned with age. It began here, when he was still too young to understand what was happening around him, but old enough to carry it with him forever. One coach would notice something the others had missed. That would change everything. The coach who noticed him wasn't looking for a star. He was just watching a group of boys kick a ball around in a broken parking lot. But there was one child who didn't chase the ball with panic or pride. He moved in quiet circles, touched the ball like it mattered, and made space where there was none. That child was Luka Modric. At NK Zadar, he was still small, still quiet, but his understanding of the game startled everyone. He didn't need to be told where to stand, he simply knew. Coaches saw a boy who didn't just react but anticipated. He wasn't the type to shout or celebrate. He kept his head down and played with the patience of someone who had already learned to wait for things in life. As he moved through the youth levels, his technical ability stood out, but so did his discipline. While other kids complained or lost focus, Luka kept repeating the same pass until it was perfect. He watched older players memorize their movements and slowly began to turn his instincts into decisions. Zadar gave him structure, but he never forgot what it meant to play without safety. That sense of scarcity stayed with him and became part of his rhythm. By the time Dinamo Zagreb scouts came calling, Luka had already built a name around town. Some doubted he could survive at the top level because of his size. He was thin, small, and didn't seem like someone who could handle the demands of a professional midfield. But Dinamo didn't see his body. They saw his mind. And what they saw was a player who understood space better than most adults. Moving to Zagreb wasn't easy. It meant leaving his family behind and entering a world where expectations were no longer abstract. He wasn't a refugee kid playing near ruins anymore. He was now part of a system that demanded results. But Luka adapted the same way he always had. He listened. He learned. He moved without drawing attention, but with a purpose that made people stop and look again. Every step he took in Dinamo's system brought him closer to the footballer he would become. And as he began to rise, something else started to happen. People stopped talking about his body and started talking about his brain. What began in the wreckage of Zadar was starting to take shape on the fields of Zagreb, and soon his next destination would push him into a league where doubt would follow him all over again. In the summer of 2008, Luka Modric arrived in London with a quiet suitcase and a long list of questions surrounding his name. Tottenham Hotspur had paid a then-record fee to sign him from Dinamo Zagreb, but many doubted the decision. The English media described him as too slight, soft, and delicate for the Premier League. For weeks, the headlines weren't about his technique, but his weight. At first, it was true that the pace of the league clashed with his rhythm. The matches were faster, the tackles harsher, and the expectations louder. Luka didn't shout back. He adapted. He studied every movement on the pitch, every pocket of space. While others chased the ball, he waited for it to come to him. When it did, he turned pressure into calm and chaos into control.
I never had any fear that I wouldn't be able to get used to the rhythm of the Premier League. Sure, I knew that it would take me some time to get used to the new surroundings, the new players, and a different mental approach. But I was never frightened that I wouldn't be able to succeed in England.
He wasn't the kind of midfielder who scored stunning goals or made viral moments. He was the kind who held the entire team's shape in his passing foot. Slowly, fans stopped looking at his size and started watching what he did with his time. Managers began trusting him with build-up play. Teammates looked for him when things became rushed. He wasn't physical, but he was precise. And in the Premier League, precision can be a weapon if you know how to use it. Under Harry Redknapp, Modric found the space to grow. Tottenham didn't become champions, but they began playing a different kind of football with him at the center. European nights returned. Big clubs started watching. And suddenly the same player who was once called too weak for England was now being linked to the biggest team in Spain. His time in London didn't end with a trophy, but it gave him something just as valuable. It gave him trust in his own pace. It gave him the confidence to know that even in the most intense environments, he didn't need to change who he was to succeed. And that self-belief would be crucial for what came next, because the spotlight waiting for him in Madrid would be brighter than anything he had faced before. When Luka Modric joined Real Madrid in 2012, he faced skepticism and was even labeled the worst signing of the season by some critics. However, he remained undeterred, focusing on adapting to his new environment and proving his worth on the pitch. Under the guidance of managers like Carlo Ancelotti and Zinedine Zidane, Modric's role evolved. Ancelotti praised him, stating, "Everyone knows how much Real Madrid loves Modric," highlighting the club's admiration for his contributions.
Todo el mundo conoce cuando todo el madrilismo, todo Real Madrid quiere a Luka Modric por la carrera que ha hecho.
Zidane, recognizing Modric's importance, included him in his best starting lineup, emphasizing his tactical intelligence and vision. Teammates also held Modric in high regard. Toni Kroos, his midfield partner, often spoke about their seamless collaboration, noting how Modric's presence brought balance and creativity to the team. Their partnership became the backbone of Real Madrid's midfield, orchestrating plays and controlling the tempo of matches. Modric's influence extended beyond his technical skills. His professionalism, humility, and dedication set a standard in the locker room. Younger players looked up to him, learning the importance of discipline and continuous improvement. Throughout his tenure, Modric played a pivotal role in Real Madrid's numerous successes, including multiple Champions League titles and domestic league victories. His ability to perform consistently at the highest level, even as he aged, earned him widespread acclaim. Now, as Real Madrid looks toward the future, his name still lingers in every conversation. Years ago, Modric and Xabi Alonso shared the same midfield. One dictated tempo, the other delivered it. They moved in rhythm, not needing words to find each other on the pitch. It was balance built on mutual respect and a deep understanding of the game's pace and geometry. Today, Alonso stands on the sidelines as one of the most promising managers in Europe. And with Modric set to play one final tournament for the club at the FIFA Club World Cup, the two will reunite. This time, not as teammates, but as manager and maestro. Their final chapter together won't be a memory. It will be music, played one last time on football's grandest stage. Over the years, Modric helped Real Madrid lift 5 Champions League trophies, multiple league titles, and countless unforgettable moments. He never demanded the spotlight, but his influence became impossible to ignore. In a team of stars, he was the rhythm between them. He came to Madrid as a question mark. He stayed long enough to become the answer. In the summer of 2018, Luka Modric didn't just play for Croatia. He led them through the greatest campaign in their footballing history. From the very first match to the final whistle in Moscow, he was everywhere on the pitch, recovering, distributing, and commanding. He played all 7 games, covered more distance than any other player in the tournament, and never looked like he was running out of breath. Croatia topped their group by beating Nigeria, Argentina, and Iceland. Against Argentina, Modric scored a long-range goal that stunned the world. In the knockout stages, Croatia went through back-to-back penalty shootouts against Denmark and Russia. Modric missed a penalty in extra time against Denmark, but when it came down to the shootout, he stepped up again and converted with no hesitation. That summed him up. Mistake, recovery, resolve. In the semifinals, Croatia faced England. After falling behind early, they turned the match around in extra time. Modric's energy never dipped. He dictated the game from deep, covering passing lanes and opening space where there seemed to be none. Croatia reached the final for the first time in their history. Though they lost 4-2 to France, Modric walked away with the tournament's highest individual honor, the FIFA Golden Ball. He became the first Croatian to win the award, and the first midfielder to do so since Zadar in 2006. His performances throughout the tournament were a blend of intelligence, leadership, and endurance. In a team that had stars like Rakitic, Mandzukic, and Perisic, it was Modric who held the system together. His influence wasn't loud, but it was constant, and the world noticed. By the end of the tournament, people weren't talking about just a great World Cup run. They were asking if Modric had just completed one of the finest individual tournaments in modern football history. What happened next would answer that question. In December 2018, Luka Modric stood on stage in Paris holding the Ballon d'Or. For the first time in over a decade, the award did not go to Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. Instead, it went to a quiet midfielder who had spent his entire career proving that influence doesn't need volume. It was a moment that shifted the football world. For 10 straight years, the Ballon d'Or had been defined by goals, headlines, and superstardom. Modric changed that in a single season. With Real Madrid, he had helped win another Champions League. With Croatia, he had led his country to the World Cup final and won the Golden Ball. No player had done more to carry both club and country in 2018. Still, not everyone agreed. Some fans questioned the decision, saying he hadn't scored enough goals. Others claimed the award should have stayed in the hands of more glamorous names. But within the football world itself, there was very little doubt. Coaches, players, and legends praised the decision, saying it was time for midfielders to be recognized again. Luka Modric is still playing, still wearing the number 10 for Croatia. At an age when most players have long said goodbye, he showed up this season with the same focus, the same tempo, and the same quiet control. Many believe this season could be his last in Madrid. And now, the farewell has arrived, at least from La Liga. After years of brilliance, he has played his final league match for Real Madrid. But before the curtain falls completely, there is one final chapter left. Modric will return for the FIFA Club World Cup, a last dance in white. One final chance to orchestrate the midfield, to wear the crest, and to leave the stage on his own terms. Xabi Alonso, once his midfield partner, is set to return as manager, and he'll be on the sidelines during that very last dance. When the Club World Cup begins, they won't meet as teammates, but as two minds guiding the rhythm from different roles. Still, they remain connected by the way they see the game. This isn't a farewell, it's a reminder. Luka Modric is still here, and one day when he finally steps away, the silence he leaves behind will say everything.
No llores porque se terminó, sonríe porque sucedió. ¡Viva Madrid y nada más! ¡Gracias!